right, so, well, you've kind of gotten a sense maybe of, like, the plot at this point. And we have some magical things and some amusement park things. And we've talked a little bit about, like, one of the most important stories in this is the story of Julian Roamer. And you won't enter the story knowing this is important. But, again, this is the thing where it was like, oh, told this story a million times and then figured it out here. So, for people who've not read Green Glass House, you don't have to if this part of the story is also here. The story of Julian Roamer is the story of this young man who made a wish, didn't know there was a shooting star in the sky, and all he wanted was to repair the road that he takes every day from work to home and home to work and back again, because it was a really hard road to walk on. So he met first a shooting star, and then a woman from a wishing well, and then a wishing stick. And each time he tried to wish for a better road, but he got a little too specific, so each time the wishing creatures would say, don't make that wish, make a different wish. And so in the process, he got himself a pair of magic shoes, he got himself a road with, like, where the paving stones were gone, but then it turned all muddy and, like, didn't work. And then, but each time, the first two said, I don't think you should make the wish you're trying to make right now. So I'm going to tell you what wish I think you should make, and I'm going to give you a wish for the future. And then he met the third creature, the wishing stick, and the wishing stick was like, you just want a road that works? I will do that, but I can do better than that. Give me your shoes and your knife and your lantern. And he cut a symbol onto each one so that when Julian put his shoes back on, roads paved themselves under his feet wherever he went. And he could just take off the shoes if he didn't want to do that. And he also had, like, a knife that would always cut a path and a lantern that would always light his way. And the wishing stick said, so choose your roads wisely, because the roads you pave with your shoes will last. And then he says, roam well, Julian, until we meet again. And he leaves. And that's where the story ends in Green Glass House, with Julian having these magic shoes that pave roads, and two wishes metaphorically in the bag. And that's when I would get asked by kids, what did he do with his other two wishes? And what I tell kids at the end of that story is I say, and the roads that he paved, they did last, and they're roads that can lead you to magical places and adventures and great stories, and you can still find them if you look, and I hope that you will. And then I get that question about two wishes, and I'd be like, I don't know, man, I don't know. Ask me something I don't. And then I was writing Rialto, and as I said, I figured it out. I do know what happened, and the second part of the story is in this book. And what happened then is Julian kept meeting these wishing creatures over and over and over, wherever he went. It was like he suddenly had a magnet and would just keep finding them. And in every place he went, the same thing would happen. He would try to make a wish, and the wishing creature would kind of go, I don't think you should do that, but I'm going to make a suggestion. If you take my suggestion and make this other wish, I will give you a wish for the future. And that wish in this book is represented by these coins with fizz in them. And so Julian kept meeting these creatures. He met a group of cats playing a game with chestnuts that cautioned him against making a wish in anger. He met a young woman with a laundry basket on her back, followed by a fox. And that woman cautioned him against making any wish meant to change who he fundamentally was inside. And then he met a woman sharpening a pair of shears who warned him against making a wish to bring someone back to life. And over and over and over, he would get these extra wishes, these little coins with holes in them. And so he started keeping them in a bag. And over time, the bag filled up. And then one day, he came to a finger post, crossroads with signs going everywhere. And there was a little girl staring up at it, and she was very upset. And Julian walked up to her and said, "Are you okay?" And the girl looked up at the sign and said, "I wish I didn't have to make this choice that I'm about to make." And Julian opened the bag, and he took out a coin, and he said, "Well, I have to say that wishing away my ability to make a choice is not something I would do. But take this and use your best judgment." And from that point on, it was like the magnet had flipped, and Julian, collector of wishes, became a wishing creature himself. And everywhere he met people who needed just a little something. Sometimes it was a big thing, sometimes it was a small thing, but it was always something that they just couldn't quite do on their own. And he tried, remembering how it had felt to be sort of told, no, don't make the wish you want. Even if, in his case, sometimes they were right. He tried to listen and figure out what it was the person really needed. And sometimes he would give advice, but every single time he would just hand out the coin and say, take this, use your best judgment. And little by little, he gave them all away. And then one day, after he'd given away, after years of wandering, the last coin in his bag, he came to that same finger post. And as he looked, he saw that all of the signs pointed to places he'd already been, because Julian had really roamed well and wandered and explored places and met people and heard stories. And as he was realizing that, a new sign came up, like a mushroom out of nowhere, and it said Fiddler's Green. Fiddler's Green was a place Julian had heard of, but he had never been. And so he thought, all right, that's the road I'm going to take. So he followed that road until it came to a ferry dock crossing a river. And there was a ferryman, and the ferryman said, I'm happy to take you across, but there's only one place you can cross from here. And I have to tell you, I take people across to Fiddler's Green, but I very rarely bring people back. And Julian said, that's all right, I've never been, that's where I want to go. And the ferryman said, okay, great, do you have a token for crossing? And Julian showed in his empty bag, and the ferryman said, well, it's okay, I can give you one, but I'm not allowed to give it to you for free. So, do you know any riddles? And Julian said, I don't know any riddles, but I'll tell you a story. And he told the story of how he had first acquired his magic shoes. And the ferryman listened and he smiled, because Julian had been roaming for so long that by now the roaming world had started to pass around his story. And so when Julian was done, the ferryman said, I've heard that one, tell me another. And Julian said, well, I will if you tell me one. And so they traded stories all night long. And at the end, the ferryman gave Julian a token carved from bone with the hole in the center, and he took him across to Fiddler's Green. And on the other side, Julian tried to hand the token back, and the ferryman said, no, you keep it. Maybe you'll find someone else who needs it. And so Julian put that first token into his bag, which was no longer empty, and he walked off into Fiddler's Green. And no one who hasn't been to Fiddler's Green knows whether or not Julian went on to become a collector of crossings or a giver of them. But maybe someday, if you go to Fiddler's Green and you come back, you can tell me. And that's how the story ends in Rialto.